I put this on Twitter, and at this point, I don't even want to say her name, but I do want to get your thoughts on this, Richard. The kind of coverage that I am seeing on the racist conspiracy theorist talking about Jewish lasers, Parkland is a hoax. This coverage has been going on now for weeks and weeks. And I'm feeling like, mind you, there aren't new things to report. There aren't new things happening. I'm seeing folks just like, I love The View, but The View has been opening up with this conspiracy theorist like every day for the past week. It's just constant coverage on her. There isn't a new angle. There isn't a new story. It's just the same story on this person, and she's becoming a household name. Her social media following has quadrupled. I really didn't know who this person was a month ago. I mean, I heard about her being elected, but I didn't know. I didn't care about this person. And there was folks on my social media saying, well, listen, it's important to call her out. I agree with that. But I feel like we're making the same mistakes that folks did with Trump. You could only talk about his racism, his misogyny, his xenophobia for so long before you were empowering him. I mean, we all know this. The amount of free media coverage that Trump got helped his campaign. There have been studies on this. And now we are endlessly talking about this person who was a crackpot, who was a stone cold racist. And I mean, even networks that I love, they're opening every show with so-and-so, 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 so-and-so. How is this helping? How's this helping? Stop the coverage. There's nothing new to report. It's exhausting to me.
I'm glad you brought her up. And for folks who don't know who Clay's talking about, because he won't say her name, he's talking about Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia's, I think, 14th district. Folks, and I talked about this on Sunday on Media Buzz, which is the media critique show on the Fox News channel, and I'll be posting that on my Instagram later, so folks should definitely give me a follow. And you'll hear my criticism on this at Richard A. Fowler on Instagram. And here's my take, because I absolutely agree with you. And here is the setup. So Marjorie Greene, or her, for the purposes of this conversation, right? She was a backbench, never had a chance of winning the seat in Georgia. Like, she wasn't going to win. There was 5 people in the race. The GOP establishment had actually backed a neurologist I think his last name was Cohen, if I'm remembering correctly. And basically the media, all media, mainstream media, conservative, like they basically started to cover her and talk about, because they were trying to cover Republican lunacy. And so they started to cover this woman and her campaign. But when they covered her, what they actually did is exactly what Clay talked about. They gave her a platform. And the moment that you give somebody like her a platform and her lunacy and her conspiracy theories, the platform, the moment you start talking about her, she's going to grow in her social media following. She's going to be able to use this new sort of, claim to fame, whether it's for good or for bad, right? She's going to use this claim to fame to do things with it. So she used this platform to grow her social media following. She used her growth in social media following to raise money. And let me tell you how much money. She's raised $2.8 million. She has $2.8 million in her campaign account. Right. And she's used this money to continue to perpetuate. She went from being last in this particular primary in the race to begin with to winning the primary. Right. And she went from winning the primary to winning the general election. And as she won the general election, remember, this is when Donald Trump was the president. And so Donald Trump loves people that are shiny, sparkling, and new, and could give him more attention. So he latched on to her social media and her media sort of new infamy. I wouldn't say stardom, because it's not stardom, it's infamy. And she began to ride this wave. And so she continues to say controversial things and do controversial things, like say she went after the invasion of the Capitol on January 6, 2021. She went to a rally the next day and talked about how, the speaker should be physically harmed for treason. And now the media continues to cover her. And by covering her, they basically created a self-fulfilling prophecy. The only
Yes.
reason why Marjorie Taylor Greene is on the education committee is because she could afford to be on the education committee. To be on a committee like that, it requires you to pay caucus dues. And the caucus dues in the Republican caucus are $125,000. And the fact that the only reason why this backbench, she should be a backbench congresswoman from Georgia, the only reason why she has that much money in her campaign account to begin with is because the media began to cover her. And the more they cover her, the more loony people go to give her money. More Trump supporters go to give her money. And so the longer the media talks about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the bigger her personality becomes and the longer she will remain as a cancer in the United States Congress. And as much as, and listen, this is not, let me be very clear. I have a problem with Republicans. I have a problem with Republicans on a daily basis. But to be very clear with you, as much as people are saying, oh, Senator McCarthy needs to do something, Congressman McCarthy, Leader McCarthy needs to do something about her, they need to remove her from the caucus. McCarthy didn't do this. The media did this, right? McCarthy has to deal with it because now she sits in his caucus. But McCarthy and Steve Scalise and all of these sort of country club Republicans, they didn't endorse her in the primary. They didn't really endorse her in the general. They didn't want her to win. But the media kept talking about her. And the more they kept talking about her, both MSNBC, CNN, all these channels, you name it, all the main newspapers, they kept writing stories about her. They kept covering all her
Yes.
conspiracy theories.
Opinion pieces, think pieces.
They keep
Yes.
showing this video of her chasing down David Hogue, the Parkland survivor, and they keep showing
Yes.
it over and over again. And they've created the monster they keep reporting about. And now it's landed on the Leader McCarthy's desk, and he has to fix the problem that he didn't create. And as much as I'm not defending Leader McCarthy, but in this case, this ain't really his fault. This ain't really his sin.
But can I tell you, I think part of it is, and I thank you for that breakdown. And that's really important to know the amount of money that she made, because I'm not going to play any clips of her on my show. No clips of her on my show. I'm not doing that. And I'm going to limit the talks about her unless something breaking happens or if it's newsworthy. But what I also noticed, and you're right, she wins the primary and she gets elected in the general. But this is just my own link. I could be wrong. When Trump gets kicked off of Twitter, which he should have been a long time ago, it almost appeared that certain media outlets needed someone else to talk about.
Absolutely.
And then literally that same week, I'm hearing her name every single hour. I watch news all day, every day. Every single show is opening up with her. Then we're having commentators break her down. I mean, this is the same thing they did with Trump. And even if it was commentators saying that Trump is a racist, deplorable, misogynist, xenophobia, grab him by the pussy, the whole bit, it was still constant coverage. And it almost appears that some media outlets are a little bit bored and they're tapped out and they don't know what else to talk about. So now here's someone to talk about. We shouldn't be engaging in this person. Like you said, we said $1.8 million. $2.8 million. This is what I'm talking about. And I've seen pundits on television, anchors on television, apologize for giving Trump so much media coverage, who was also a loon, who also said outlandish things that weren't true, right? They're doing it again. And
absolutely.
I don't understand why don't first of all, on the Democratic side, we don't have someone like her. On the Democratic side, Trump would have never gotten elected. But why don't we ever have somebody we pour in all of our media coverage, every step, everything they do on the Democratic side? It is always on the Republican side with these loons that we pour so much in, and literally now she is a household name. And I'm just saying, stop.
I feel as though like the media feels like if they cover this person over and over again, and I get in their mind, they think, well, we have to inform the public about how heinous this person is. And you can. And they've done, I mean, in this particular case, they've beaten Marjorie Taylor they've beaten this dead horse. This horse is dead.
Yeah.
It died yesterday. It died again.
And Richard, not even getting an interview. It could be
Yeah.
one thing if they're sitting down with her and holding her accountable. It's literally just constant commentary on this person.
And showing old clips from 2 years ago or a year ago.
It's ridiculous. So
or digging up old tweets from her.
This is a larger conversation of who the media pays attention to. And if you learned anything from Trump, don't make the same mistake. These people are dangerous. They're pumping out propaganda. They are openly racist. I mean, this is extremely dangerous. And I'm telling you, every single show, every single network is just talking about this person, and you're not disempowering them. You're not exposed. Maybe 2 weeks ago you were. Maybe 2 weeks ago you were exposing them, but now there isn't a different story. You're going to have to crack down and talk about COVID policy.
But you know, there's other stories. I mean, I think it's not like there isn't other things to talk about that the American people need to be informed. Like, for example, what they should be covering is the fact that Mitch McConnell still to this day has not made a operating agreement with Chuck Schumer. So Republicans, even though Democrats are in the majority, Republicans are still in charge of all the committees.
Exactly.
Like, that is a story.
That's huge to me.
Talking about. That's news.
That's huge.
We should be talking about how the stimulus package is coming out, because Joe Biden met with Republicans yesterday in his first ever public meeting at the White House. That's news. We should be covering that. We should be covering the distribution of the vaccine and how unequitable it is that in cities like Chicago, where there's an outbreak happening in the South and West Side where African Americans live, majority of the vaccine is going to the north side of the city. Or in cities like New York, where they've opened up vaccination centers in Black and brown neighborhoods, but white folks are going to those neighborhoods to get those vaccines. Those are news stories. Or the fact that they're talking about school reopening, but they're not talking about the fact that Black and brown kids aren't going back to school. That's a story. And instead of the news media focusing on that, we are spending our time focusing on this dried up white woman from Georgia who should be a backbench congresswoman who says crazy things. White women say crazy things all the time. I don't understand why that's news. There's Black folks who say crazy things all the time. They don't make the news every day.
Well, unless you're, upholding white supremacy, like some of those folks. I don't even feel like saying their names either. You know all those folks out. If you're doing that one,
they're not making as much news.
If you're doing that one, we'll make you the Attorney General of Kentucky.
Yes, but he's not. Even in his case, he's not getting as much news.
No, I agree. I know. I'm with you. I understand what you mean.
Opening salvo for every major cable show on cable today, yesterday, Sunday, Saturday. She was on every Sunday show did a segment about her. Think about that for just a second. Sunday shows, that's the week of news. And every Sunday show had a segment about there's 435 members of Congress in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, rather. And we are singling out this one person because she says crazy things? Really? And as a result of it, all she's doing is raising money because she's saying, oh, they're attacking me, give me money. And people are doling out the dough for her.
Yep,
and she's using that money to get herself positions on the education subcommittee. Before you know it, she's going to raise enough money to be in the leadership of the House Republicans. She's going to be the whip. Why? Because she's raised all this money.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to pay any more attention to her unless something newsworthy happens that needs to be constructed, that needs to be deconstructed rather, needs to be talked about. But I just wanted to open with that I'm telling y'all, pay attention to this, because they are literally making people who are this dangerous a star and giving her more power to be more dangerous.